There's no summer lull in sports media. Formula One has decided where to take its media rights. USFL going to a second year. Hey, Chris Mason, where's Marshan? We got to get this podcast done. And we're back. The Marchand and Oran Sports Media Podcast presented by USA Track and Field. I'm John Oran, the media reporter for Sports Business Journal, and he's not Andrew Marchand, the sports media columnist for New York Post, who has his toes in the sand somewhere in the undisclosed location, somewhere in the Southeast United States. He is David Levy, who is currently chairman of Genius Sports, senior advisor of the Raine Group, and founder and CEO of the sports investing and consultancy company Back9 Ventures. David, thanks a ton for filling in for Marchand.
Hey, the least I can do for him and for you. Appreciate being here.
David Levy, your resume is way too long. We only have a half hour here. I think most listeners know you as the former president of Turner Broadcasting, the person, the hero status that you have. You're the person I find solely responsible for scrapping the regionalization of the NCAA tournaments back in, when was that? 2010, I believe, right?
We signed the deal in 2010. Our first airing with CBS. Our partners were in 2011. Yes.
You've done deals just about every single major sports league in America, turbocharged Bleacher Report's growth, the man behind the match, the E-League. Most importantly, though, you're a new father-in-law.
Yes. Why I have not stopped smiling. I'm still smiling right now.
What kind of father-in-law are you going to be? We've all had them, David.
I hopefully a good one. I hope. I love my new daughter-in-law, Amanda. Brett, my son, who works over at Sports Grid right now, just got married last weekend, and my wife Nikki and I have not stopped smiling. It was a great day, a great event, great weekend, and we welcome her to the Levy family.
Well, here's what I know about Levy. We're not going to disagree a lot today. I've covered you, David, for probably 2 decades, more than 2 decades. And much of what I know about sports media is just by watching you, reporting about you, and having you explain things to me. So I know you don't do a lot of these interviews. I've almost never seen you on a podcast. So thank you very much for doing this.
I do it for you anytime, John. I really do appreciate it. You guys do a great job at SBJ, and looking forward to having a good conversation over the next half hour.
All right, well, let's get started as we always do with who's up, who's down.
Who's up, who's down?
All right, David, because you're new here, I'm gonna start us off with who's up. I'm gonna go to Eric Shanks, who is, of course, the head of Fox Sports. And he just this week said that the USFL is going to a second season. And that news, I thought, was greeted by a gigantic yawn through the industry. But I'm telling you, I have covered, the Alliance of American Football. I covered the XFL going into the pandemic. These were spring leagues that didn't even see the end of the first season. The original XFL, it didn't get to a second season, and I bet you that NBC would have canceled it if they could have before it got to the championship game. The idea that a spring football league is going to see season 2 is something that we don't see a lot, and I think it's something that has to be applauded.
I like to do point counterpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead. This is your pod this week.
I wouldn't say it's an up. I mean, first of all, Shanks and I have known each other for years. Good friend. I guess you have to define what's the definition to Shanks of success, right? Is important to understand whether that's really a strong up, or is it just the fact that they committed to 3 years and it didn't completely flop. I mean, they are controlling expenses as they should, right? I mean, having all the games in one area and location and so forth and so on, they made this the best it could be under the circumstances. However, the good news is they control the IP, they control the merch, they control the brands. Hopefully, I think there's some question about that, but ultimately, it's an up. I agree with you. They're having a season 2, but I think you have to. What's the definition of success? And if under 1 million homes is the definition of success, and they knew that was going to happen, then sure.
All right, so David Levy, buy, sell, hold USFL right now. What are you doing?
I'd hold.
Hold on him.
I'd hold.
That's up for a spring league, I think. All right, let's go to you. Who do you have as up this week?
So my up is Adam Silver. I think that the happiest guy in the room when the deal was announced for the Apple MLS deal was Adam Silver, because as his rights come up in the next couple of years, he now has a second bidder in the marketplace other than Amazon, now that Apple is committing to the sports business. And whether he goes to Apple or not doesn't matter. It's just nice having another bidder in the marketplace. So I say Adam Silver is my up.
Yeah, I want to dive into that a ton, David. Let's bring that back in the topics. I'm just going to take us to who's down. Big news that broke last week. ESPN is about to sign a deal, 3-year renewal with Formula One. So my down is Jay Marine, a senior executive at Amazon, because Amazon came in and bid more than ESPN by like 15-20% more. And still F1 said no. Amazon still, and Apple, and really any of these digital providers still have not been able to get sports rights that traditional media companies want to keep. If traditional media companies are aggressive in trying to keep these sports rights, they're not going to Apple and they're not going to Amazon.
Well, there's a lot to talk about there. We could almost spend a full half hour on your down. And there's lots of reasons for it. And I think F1 made the right decision. You know, if you're trying to grow a global brand and you finally realize that the US marketplace is truly something you need to focus on, then you want to have the largest reach vehicle out there as possible. And ESPN is going to give far more reach than Amazon's going to provide. So in my mind, I think Formula One made a great decision for a short-term deal in order to grow and enhance the F1 brand here in the US. So I think it was a smart deal for F1. And if you want to give down for Amazon, that's fine. I could talk about deals that Turner bid on that we tried to get NFL football. I won't tell you the package that we went after to try to get. And we had a larger bid price. And the NFL, rightly so in their mind, went with the large reach vehicle at the time. So it happens. It's the right thing for the leagues. I think if they can afford to do it, stay tuned for that one. My down, since we're going to stick with the F1, and I think everybody thought Netflix was going to be a true bidder into the sports marketplace. I would say my down is Netflix. If there was one sport that they should have gone after and are associated with very closely is F1. And if they wanted to dip their toe into it, they should have. They really didn't. And I don't think they did because of where their stock price is today and their focus now on earnings and making money. And I think it would be just a tough challenge for them to even air F1 on their platform. So it's a down because I think some of the leagues were hoping that they would have another bidder like Apple coming into the marketplace.
So David, let's go right into the topics and let's stick with F1. We both had aspects of that deal as our who's down. I'm curious, if you were running Amazon Sports, or Apple really wasn't involved with this. If you were running Amazon Sports, what would you have done to try to get that? Is it just a simple matter of money? Did they have to get up to 50% more than ESPN or double ESPN?
Anytime you have a new platform trying to break into into an existing business like the sports business, you have to be aggressive in your price because you have to stand out that much more dramatically versus who else is in the bidding process, because you don't have the reach, nor do you have the gravitas of working and producing great programming. You think about it, Amazon, and I just recently through Back Nine Ventures was hired by One Championship, which is the competitor of UFC, very, very big in Asia, now coming here to the US. Amazon just did a 5-year deal with One Championship. And, part of that negotiation was the fact that One Championship produces the entire event for Amazon. Amazon does not have a full capability production team. And so to keep adding on to more events, they're going to have to decide whether they want to purchase an existing organization, like possibly a CBS or something of that nature, or start hiring a huge production team, which is a lot of costs. So for now, they seem to be acquiring events that are self-contained and self-produced, just like Apple did. They don't have a production team. Apple and MLS produces, I think, 93% of the games, if not all of them now. So they're dipping their toes into places where they can, because they're self-produced and self-contained programming. So, for me, Amazon, if they really wanted to get, if they really, really wanted F1, they'd have to probably bid a lot more than they did, and convince that the NFL football and one championship and other things that they're really getting into the sports business, and that they would market to all of their subscribers around the globe to help build the Formula One.
Now, David, I hear this from people like you all the time about Amazon sort of not having and Apple and these streamers not having the capability to produce their own events. You ran, of course, Turner, oversaw all those networks. How hard is it just to set up your own production facility? I mean, the people do that all the time, don't they? I mean, it seems like more of an irritant than a really big speed bump to me.
Well, depending on what you really want and what your capabilities you really want to have, right? I mean, to do one-offs, it's not that hard to hire, outsource everything, right? But to actually put your brand and build out your brand and your culture and how you're going to build a sports division is far different. Outsourcing ex-employees, you have to figure out when they're not working somewhere else, what projects they're working on, how do you want to produce promo spots? Do you want to have your own on-air talent? There's so much that goes involved in building a sports production team and making sure that it's relevant to the brand that you want to put on the air.
Let's stick with the F1 for a second. ESPN had been paying right around $5 million a year, and now it's up to between I think it was $75 and $90 million per year. Why does that make sense for ESPN?
I think purely on a math basis, meaning they're not probably going to get any new distribution revenue out of that. Ad sales, I've seen the ratings on F1 while growing. I bet you the math doesn't back into a $75-90 million price tag. So the answer to your question is, why does it make sense? It probably makes sense for a host of other reasons. Event programming is becoming more and more important in the US, meaning having a destination to bring clients, to sell merchandise, to brand your ESPN Plus, all the things that go around your portfolio. And F1 smartly is now having 3 of their races here in the US on US time zones. One in Miami, which is a big market for Latin America and the US, and sort of a cultural relevant market. Obviously, Las Vegas, a huge destination for everyone, and then Austin, Texas. So 3 of the Formula One races are now going to be held here in the US. I think ESPN realized that and wanted to make sure that they could be dominant in those markets, as well as help market the ESPN brand, ESPN Plus, and where they want to go with everything they're doing right now as a company.
That doesn't include Montreal, which is within this time zone. They're South America. They're raised in Brazil, right?
In Brazil.
So there are 5 races in this time zone, in addition to like Monte Carlo and some of these, the grand brands that ABC is going to love.
Very high end, demographics, and I think important for ESPN to keep that in their portfolio. So I think they made it. I think both the league, Formula One, made a very smart decision to sticking with ESPN, and I thought ESPN, probably paid a little bit more than they wanted to, but I think they kept a very important league and programming for their network.
Final question on F1 before we go. Speculation. This is a pod, so we love to speculate. ESPN was between 75 and 90. Amazon was up at 100. What's your best guesstimate? Well, if Amazon had done 150, would it have gone to Amazon 120? Like what would have been that number in your mind that Amazon would have to reach?
and we're all speculating, right? Because no one knows what sits in the Formula One board when they make decisions like this. But I think they really, truly wanted the reach. And I don't know, the number would have to be, I'd probably say north of 200 for Amazon to win. I think they really wanted to stick with ESPN. I think ESPN made a bid that was close enough to what they wanted, what they thought they deserved. I think the number they were thinking about at one point was 100 million. I don't know the structure of the deal, but if they got close, you know, to me, there was no other decision to stick with a reach vehicle to grow your brand here in the US.
And as you said in the Who's Down, one takeaway from this is Netflix is not really going to be serious about live sports rights, even though they did dabble with this.
Yeah, I think Netflix is dabbling with a lot of challenges right now. And, you know, there'd be we could do a whole podcast on whether we think Netflix is being smart by launching, you know, a second tier ad supported network at a cheaper price. You know, I think Netflix had this ultimate brand of no commercials. I think the younger generation has been trained not to watch commercials, unfortunately, since I grew up with the commercial world, but they've gone with the non-commercial world. And to bring commercials back, you know, seems anti what their culture and brand was at Netflix. So be interesting to see how they launch it, what they do with it. The advertising community is very, very strongly for all these streaming services having advertising, because ultimately this is appointment viewing back again. You're actually choosing the shows you want to watch, so you're more engaged when you choose your programming versus what I used to call collision viewing, when you walked around and just kind of hit the dial and found a movie you liked and so forth, and you stuck with it. You know, you're actually sitting down saying, I want to watch this, I want to watch that. And ultimately you're more engaged, which makes your commercials more valuable. And they're not fully loaded commercials, meaning, you know, they're limited commercial pods.
Incredible timing. They're all going to these lower advertising supported tiers. Disney, Netflix, just as the advertising market is crashing. So good luck to our streamers.
Yeah.
Well, David, let's go. NBA should have been topic one if we have David Levy on the pod, for goodness sakes. But topic two, NBA. Everybody's taking a look at the NBA rights, which are coming up in 2025. You did this deal that Turner currently has. I remember I covered that deal. You went early to keep Fox from coming in, to keep to keep others from coming in. If you're running Turner now, or if you're running ESPN, some free advice. How would you approach this? I mean, it's existential for those two networks to keep the NBA rights, right?
So listen, I think both the incumbents, ESPN and Turner Broadcasting, are not looking about getting out of the NBA. I think they're looking to press up in the NBA. Far more growth opportunities that the NBA still has. I think there's going to be expansion. New teams are going to come in, new markets. You know, the ones that I've heard in the press and reading about is Seattle and probably Vegas, although Adam's not going to tell any where he's going with these new teams. They'll probably happen after the deals are done, because whatever the new deals are, you know, the owners that are existing today would like to keep that money within themselves, and the valuation of the teams will go up depending on what the new media rights deals are, which I see those deals coming in somewhere to 2.5x to 3 times the value where they are today.
Wow. If you're Adam Silver, you like you said in your Who's Up, Apple did the MLS deal. Thank God we have another bidder in here. Amazon has been very aggressive to get there. What would it take, Adam, for an established NBA? The NBA is not MLS. What would it take Adam to make that leap to go to streaming?
Well, you know, I think it all depends on how Adam wants to structure his new deals. Is he going to keep the same 2 existing deals the way they are today? Could he add a third partner with more games, or think about what he wants to do with NBA TV? There's a lot to Adam to think through, but to be honest, Adam still wants to have large reach vehicles. I'm sure he still wants to have the finals on a broadcast network, because you have to build the next generation of fans, and you don't want to limit yourself to smaller reach vehicles. That doesn't mean that he won't be on a streaming service. Let's remember, ESPN has a streaming service called ESPN Plus, and Turner or Discovery Warner Brothers has a streaming service called HBO Max. So I'm sure in those negotiations with Adam, both Turner and ESPN are going to want games on their streaming services. So they will be in the streaming marketplace. And the question is whether how much Amazon or Apple want to really dig in and try to get a piece of this. There's also conversations where we could talk about where the RSNs will be down the road and how will they be reformulated in what the next generation of an RSN may be, and will the leagues be involved in that? So lot for Adam to think through. I do believe that Amazon and Apple will be part of the conversations. Whether he goes that route is up to him and how he feels he can rethink the packages that he has today. I know he's talked about possibly stopping the league in the middle of the season and having sort of a tournament. Like
I love that idea. Do you like that idea?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it makes the regular season more valuable because you have to figure out a way to get into this new tournament, right? You have to qualify, and qualifying is where you stand in the regular season. So gives more value to the regular season. So I like it. That could be a package in itself. So there's just ways for him to think about slicing and dicing what he has today and working with his incumbents. But I believe both Turner and ESPN will still be a part of the NBA. I'd be surprised if either one is out. The question is, do they have the same package that they have today?
Well, the reason for Adam to go after Apple or Amazon is, number one, money. Of course, they're going to bid a lot and bid everything up. And number two is the idea that if you're streaming, you're attracting a younger audience, and that's a way forward. If you were still with Turner, you would be saying like, look, we can do that on Bleacher or HBO Max or whatever their streaming service is going to end up being. How much would that resonate, do you think, with the league?
A lot, but you'd have to prove it, right? I mean, you'd have to show. I mean, the good news for Adam, and I really mean this, is he's got time. These contracts aren't up to 24, 25. So he can see how Amazon is playing out with NFL football. He can see how MLS is playing out with Apple. He can find out a lot of data and information that will come over the next couple of years to see how, this lays out with the recession coming up. Are people going to cut their streaming services down? Who's going to be the winning streaming services? Does Apple really play, or was MLS their only, all these questions, he's got time. Now, on the other hand, if I'm sitting at Turner and ESPN, I'd rather try to close this deal sooner rather than later, because the less information that Adam has, the better I can pitch my networks, right? Because it hasn't launched yet, right? So the sooner that they can get their deals done, the better for them. If I'm Adam, how long do you want to wait, and when do you want to start talking with your incumbents?
I don't know. I'm going to throw a glass half empty take at you here, David. And if you're Apple, and right now you're dabbling in sports with a Friday night weekday regular season MLB game that got no ratings whatsoever on ESPN, and you're also dealing with Major League Soccer, which was troubled on linear TV. The ratings that it got, it never really grew much from in the past 20 years on TV. Do you sense? I think that there should be a fear. I'm not predicting anything, but there should be a fear that Apple's going to say, "Boy, we're not getting any kind of engagement off sports. Why don't we just go and focus on original shows and movies?"
Yeah. Listen, the baseball was a test, right? I don't think anybody thought baseball was going to really do anything for Apple. I mean, those were non-exclusive games. In the local market, you're going to get the over-the-air or wherever the RSN was airing it at the same time. So it was non-exclusive in the local markets, obviously outside the market. But baseball, those Friday night games. I mean, first of all, Friday night TV hunt levels are down, the lowest they are, on any night. It's just a tough night for television. I think that was a test for Major League Baseball. They had a bunch of extra games. When the Braves gave back, I mean, this is going back when I was at Turner, we gave back a bunch of national Braves games They had a bunch of games that ESPN gave back. So they had this pool of these national, non-exclusive in the local market games. And Noah figured out a way to sell some of them to Apple, and Apple to test whether they could get this done or not. So to me, I wouldn't count baseball as success or not success. I think that was purely a test. MLS is a different story. Those are exclusive games. You can't watch an MLS game anywhere but on Apple TV right now. I know they carved out some non-exclusive games that they hopefully will air on over-the-air television to give the reach and to build the next generation of fans for them. But those are exclusive games. And if you're a diehard MLS fan in Seattle, which I know there are, in Atlanta, which I know there are, and in Portland, which I know there are, you've got to get an Apple subscription. And that's what Apple's trying to do. They're trying to grow their subscription base. Just like DirecTV when it was in its heyday and they got Sunday ticket package, correct. They had 3 million people buying the Sunday ticket, out of their 20 million homes. So, it was a large number for them, or somewhere in that number. And it was bringing in new DirecTV subscribers, building the subscription base. That's what, eventually we'll talk about. Hopefully we'll talk about ESPN and ESPN Plus when they start shifting more games over there. But it's to drive subscription. And somewhere in the data set that Apple was evaluating whether they want an MLS, they figured that they could get a lot new subscriptions for the fan base of MLS. The question is it grow big enough for MLS to grow their fan base? And hopefully it will for Don. I'm rooting for him. But that the basis behind Apple isn't Major League Baseball. I think that was a test. The real test is going to be whether MLS people sign up for the Apple subscription.
And what's so interesting about that is that those hardcore fans that you're talking about, they're all going to get it for free early on. But this is a 10-year deal, and we've all had to buy battery chargers and new earphones and everything. At what point is Apple going to start to sell them down the line on that one? Topic 3, David, LIV Golf, their first U.S. event is coming up this weekend. I have long thought that they have a really tough road ahead in the U.S., given just in terms of media, given that CBS and NBC and ESPN and Amazon all have established, and Discovery, Warner Brothers internationally, have established long-standing relationships with the PGA Tour. Fox Sports doesn't. If you were running Turner before Discovery took it over, and you weren't encumbered by a PGA Tour deal, would you be looking at these rights?
I think it's early to start saying when I look at the rights. I would have waited. I would certainly have conversations with them. I would make sure that my name was in the mix. I would make sure that they knew who I was. I would show some interest, but I'd actually wait to see what happens this year. I think Jay hasn't fully laid out his cards yet. I think he's behind the 8 ball a little bit. I think he knows it, but the genie's not going back in the bottle, meaning LIV is here. They've paid these golfers. I think the golf in general needed to have, as you mentioned earlier, I'm senior advisor for Raine. Raine was working with the PGL for a while back in 2020 and 2021. There was opportunities for Jay to partner with the PGL back then. He decided not to. The Saudis then came in and did their own deal. And they have an empty war chest. Not an empty war chest, a full war chest.
Yeah, what's the opposite of empty?
Opposite, right? Yeah. They have a full war chest and are willing to spend whatever it takes. And at the end of the day, I think the brand names that they're bringing over are big names. I think people are going to be interested to see what this golf is all about and what team golf is all about. I have no problem with them having no cuts. I think that the 48 field, if they really get the right 48 people, no one's going to care whether there's cuts or not. And I believe it's going to be unique golf and good golf with good brand names. So how would I not keep myself, if I was a president of any division in sports, how would I not at least make sure that I was looking at it, talking to them? And I think I'd wait till after this year to see what happens with Jay and where he's going with his new ideas, and where LIV Golf, what are the players who are really going over, and how is the public responding to it? And I think the public, as much as people have been talking about where the money is coming from and so forth. I think Greg Norman has says this and so forth, is that a lot of U.S. companies do business with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has a lot of investments. The PIF is involved in many, many private equity companies here in the U.S. And I think at some point, that will be in the distance, and it'll be about golf. And is this good golf?
So let's do a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being just absolute winners, 1 being a disaster. LIV's launch right now, I'm going to give it probably a 7 or 8. I think that they got a few more golfers than I expected. And I think that they made a little bit more noise than I was expecting coming up. Where are you at on that?
I would say 7, exactly where I think, they did the production was pretty good. I mean, they hired David Hill to do the production. They don't have any real distribution, but they're finding places to put it. And so they launched with some good brand names, and they're on the front page or the back page of every newspaper and every article and every golf club. I play golf at a few clubs, and every conversation and every foursome is, did you watch LIV Golf? Do you think who's going to go next? Golf is in the topics of everybody right now.
It's incredible. We write about it. It's the most read story for days on our website by far.
It's the most unique thing that's happened in the sports business in a long, long time, which is
talk about a disruptor. Yeah.
They started out of nowhere with quality brand names.
Let's talk about the PGA Tour's response. Same thing. 10, it was perfect. 1, it was a disaster. I feel that it's down right around 3 or 4. I think that that their messaging has been, it just hasn't been it hasn't resonated, I guess, is where I'm going with that. Where do you put it?
Yeah, I would give a 2 from Jay's perspective in the initial response. It seemed very defensive. And I would give, Rory McIlroy, who's taking a lot on his shoulders, a 7 or an 8 on how he's responding. He's saying, listen, I wouldn't do it, but I'm not going to hate the people that go over there. I'm still going to be friends with the people who go over there. They made their decisions. I can't make decisions for them. So, I think certain responses were 7s and 8, like Rory's and Justin Thomas. And I think Jay, initially was a 2. And I think Jay is, going to have to respond quickly. I mean, he's already upped the purses. Why wouldn't he have done that in the past? I think he's got.
He just found the money, right, David?
I think that he's going to have to start thinking about how he treats his top 50 different than he treats his, bottom 250. Meaning, if you're ranked 250 today, they treat them pretty similar. If the number 1 golfer in the world misses, or number 10 golfer in the world misses a cut, he doesn't get paid. And he pays his own expenses to get there and everything else. And so does the number 250. When LeBron James loses a game against the New York Knicks, because I'm a Knicks fan and I have to put that in there. When LeBron James loses, he still gets paid. And so does the last guy on the bench, and they're paid differently, by the way. Number 12 guy on the bench is paid a lot differently than the number 1 guy on the bench. And that's not the case with golf. And I think that's been something that golfers are now rising up and saying, listen, we know that the top 50 golfers are the reason why you're getting the media rights you're getting, the digital exposure you're getting, and shouldn't we be paid differently than some of the other golfers? And that's a question that Jay's going to have to answer.
David, for the rest of the year, I expect to see a lot of what we're expecting now, a trickle of golfers sort of moving over, competing tours going on. My next real benchmark that I'm looking at is Augusta, to see how Augusta plays it. 2 questions here. One is, what do you think Augusta will do? What's your sense? And number 2 is, do you have any benchmarks to that LIV has to hit or the PGA Tour has to hit as this continues on?
So I'll answer. I wish I could understand how Augusta does what Augusta does. It's their own invitation. I would assume, and I think it'd be hard pressed not to, any existing champion. So a Dustin Johnson, a Phil Mickelson, who has actually won a Masters jacket, Sergio, I think they will invite them back. I do. That's just my gut. I have no inside information. I would assume that that's part of tradition. And, you know, even when some of these golfers weren't really playing that much, they were still invited back as past champions. So I would think past champions would come to Augusta. Other than that, I have no idea who will be invited or who won't be invited. That's just my gut.
And then is there a benchmark? I did the worst journalist thing where I asked 2 questions at once.
Oh, what was the benchmark question?
Is there a benchmark that you're looking for this going forward?
I think it'll be all about world ranking points, meaning is LIV going to be ranked? Because today at most of the majors, part of the qualifying for a major is what's your world ranking. And if they get world ranking points, then game over. They'll be invited to all, in my belief, they'll be invited to all the majors. And then what's going to happen will be interesting. The majors may even become even more valuable than they are today, even though, you know, there's nothing better in golf than no one ever talks about who won the St. Jude Classic. They talk about who won the Masters and who won the US Open, right? So this will be, if that's the case, it'll be the only time where LIV golfers are actually competing against PGA Tour golfers. So it'll have another essence of, you know, the true, you know, four most important golf events of the year.
Right. You have 2 weekend tours, and the only time that you get the big groups is at the
Be in a major. Will be in a major. So majors have become even more important.
Before you go, let me hit you with a couple of quick hitters. 1 sentence answers, David. Quick hitters. MLS Apple. Was it a good deal for MLS?
To be determined. You know, they certainly got the right price in the sense that they got an increase from the 90 to the 250. To be determined whether there's enough reach there to grow the next generation of fans. Won't be decided early.
Was it a good deal for Apple?
Yes.
Apple's strategy with MLS, with MLB versus Amazon's strategy internationally with NFL. Which one would you bet on right now?
I bet on Amazon. I think Amazon is going to be a real player in the sports business from a global perspective and from a US perspective. I think they have a large reach vehicles. I think they have a tremendous amount of data information about goods and services that people buy. I think they can target ads. They can target content to the right people at the right time. Big proponent of Amazon. And of course, I'm hoping that One Championship does a great job there.
This is a big pod topic. When will ESPN go direct to consumer with its main channel?
That's going to be a mathematical equation because, you know, as they still get a lot of money from the good old cable operators, satellite and telco companies, you know, close to $12 a sub. And let's say they're in 80 million subs. That's, you know, 80 million times $12 times 12 times a year. A lot of money. ESPN Plus is growing, and there'll be some equation, some mathematical equation where you can start moving more product over and lose more subs on the $12 side, but gain more data and knowledge from your consumer, control the experience, and, you know, get $5 a sub on that side, but have far more information and data and control the consumer experience. So there's going to be a balance back and forth. I see a time where you'll see the Ohio State Michigan game both on cable and on ESPN Plus, meaning there'll be a time where they stay on both, and then it'll be shifted over completely to the other side
at some point.
You know, and I think it's just really just math, and when ESPN feels it's time to move more product over.
Best sports media investment right now. I love that you're with the Raine Group. You're with Back Nine Ventures. Where are you putting your money?
I'm a big believer in combat sports right now. I think it's on a huge uprise. If I take the 3 hats that I wear, Genius Sports, which obviously collects, buys and distributes sports data and license data around sports betting. I see that combat sports is a huge betting opportunity. And if you bet on a sport, you're 98% more likely to watch. So when I say combat sports, I also mean boxing. If you see where boxing, you know, it's kind of funny. I see MLS almost doing what boxing did 40 years ago, and kind of got off the largest reach vehicle. When I grew up, boxing was on ABC Wild World of Sports, and we knew every heavyweight champion, and we watched them all. Boxing is now Top Rank, who's also a client, has been on ESPN now for 3 years over the air. And if you look at the ratings on boxing right now, they're going through the roof. So, and I think, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson and all these brand names that are coming back into this, the younger generation is getting very interested in boxing because it's quick. They're 3-minute rounds, just like UFC. They can bet on it. And I think that if I was in the sports business, I'd be looking at combat sports right now. I think it's on the uprise. You
see Jake Paul is more than just a carnival barker out there.
I don't think he's a real fighter. I don't think if he fought any real fighter, I don't think he wouldn't be you saw what Mayweather did to him. He played around with him for 9 rounds, so no, but Jake Paul brings excitement back to the Instagram followers that follow him. And, I have no problem him fighting the fights he's fighting against basketball players and UFC fighters, because it just brings popularity to the sport of boxing.
Yeah, it convinces me to watch him. That's for sure.
Huh.
David, we're coming up on the most popular part of the pod. Let's do a call of the week.
Call of the week.
All right, the best part of not having Andrew Marchand here is I finally get to height my O's. Last week, Adley Rutschman, future Hall of Famer, was at the plate. We have Kevin Brown and Jim Palmer on the call from Masson. Let's hear it.
And Rutschman here powers one into right field. A titanic blast up and over the bullpen. Adley Rutschman with his second major league home run. And boy, was it a major shot to get the Orioles on the board.
Yeah, that's in the no doubt about him classification.
David, this is our pet peeve. We finally have announcers traveling to the games again, so of course the calls are going to be better than if they were sitting. That was in Chicago. If they were sitting in Baltimore, it wouldn't have been as good because you had to wait and look at the monitor. The Orioles had Gary Thorne. He was loved by the fans. He was a great play-by-play guy. They replaced him with really subpar announcers. The team wasn't winning. They had subpar announcers and people weren't gravitating toward the team. I think Kevin Brown is like an exciting young play-by-play announcer. Jim Palmer is, of course, Jim Palmer to Baltimore fans. And just being able to see people like Adley Rutschman. Can you tell I'm excited about my
I can tell you're really holding back there, John. Nobody knows you're a Baltimore Oriole fan.
Hey, David, thanks a ton for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the end. I know you, as I said before, I know you don't do these a ton, so that was great, and I can't thank you enough for doing this.
You know what? It was fun. I'd be more than happy to come back. You've been a great. I love the SBJ, and you guys are doing a great job with these podcasts.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys.